So hello there, I'm David Bradley, aka Dr. B, and we are today looking at, in applied theory, specifically for bass, we're looking at hybrid scales. And hybrid scales are basically a suffusion of one scale or a supplanting of one scale onto another, so that we can use phrases and patterns and scales inferring more than one scale. So for example, we've got Mixolydian blues and Dorian blues, and I'm actually going to do a third one which I've called Mixodorian blues, but I haven't written that down here, which is a combination of those two scales together, all three scales together, Dorian, Mixolydian and the blues scale. Then we're going to look at bebop major and bebop minor, which are more traditional. As you can see here, there's inverted commas around Mixolydian blues and Dorian blues because they're my names for them. But bebop major and bebop minor are just two scales out of the, I think it is 5 bebop scales, just to give an example of where they exist naturally in music. So the first one we're going to look at is Mixolydian blues, and I'll be right back. So here we are, we're looking at Mixolydian blues. I'm going to bring up my bass here. How can I do that? There we go, that one. That one. And we're playing in G, so E, F, F sharp, G. And we're basically going to take the blues scale that we learnt in the last lesson. Make sure I'm turned up and sufficiently audible. Then we're going to add a major second, major third, and major sixth, and then we've got third and second and third there as well. And then we've also got a blue note, and as you can see here I've written just a little description. Obviously you've got green is the root or the octave, yellow is the additional Mixolydian notes, blue is the blue note, and red equals the scale degrees or the notes in the scale normally. And just to show you quickly, Mixolydian is basically just the major scale until you get to there, and then it's a flat 7th octave. So most of the notes are already in there, but we've in the blues scale, except for the major second, major third, and major sixth. So to come back to this, the whole sound of the whole scale together is. It might seem like a bit of a mouthful, but you don't necessarily use all of the same notes, all the notes in the scale in every phrase. So you might do, let's jump to the bass again, a phrase like or you might do a little inflection of the note, like, so that's the major third, that's the minor third, you do major third, minor third, major third. And I love these kind of scales. It just adds a new layer of colour, because say you're playing a blues line, which is outlining the Mixolydian anyway, but you've got the blues notes in the blue note in there, and the minor pentatonic over, say, a dominant 7 chord. So these are really useful. This is a really useful scale to go over dominant 7 chords, which is, and we will come to 7th chords and all that sort of stuff moving forward, but this is just thought I'd include that information. So you've got your blues, your Mixolydian, and together you've got your and that just fuses it together into a lovely blues sort of pattern. So I'm going to leave the scale there for you just for a little bit longer, but it's something to experiment with, where you hit these notes in your phrases and where you hit them in the passages. And I shall leave that up to you, because I'm more just interested in displaying what the potential options are. So, to move on swiftly, we've got the Dorian blues next, which is slightly less complicated, because we haven't got that major third, so it's simpler to play. And if we switch over to bass cam, so we've got root, minor second, sorry, major second, third, fourth, flat fifth, fifth, sixth, seventh, octave. You may notice from me playing through the scale, it sounds a bit more jazzy. You can also use it for sort of funkier lines, like. And so, as previously mentioned about the Mixolydian blues, I would use that more over a blues style sound or a major or dominant 7 chord, whereas the Dorian blues is more suited to minor 7 chords, because it doesn't have that major third in there, and it's a lovely hybrid for blues, and it's used commonly with well, it's not used commonly, but people kind of combine the two scales quite commonly. But I just put it together as one thing, over kind of minor chords, and it's got more of a jazzy sound. It's got that kind of. So that's the Dorian blues. Now the next one, which is definitely made up by me, but I'm sure loads of people use these ideas, is the Mixo-Dorian blues. So you've got, before we move on quickly, Dorian is root, second, flat third, fourth, fifth, flat sixth, flat seventh octave. So it's essentially the same as the Mixolydian, but with a flat third instead of a major third. I'll do that slowly so you can see it, just so you know what you're referencing. So in G it's 3, 5, 6, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, and then you've got the A, or 2, 3, 5 in there as well. And that's the second mode of the major scale. So if you're interested in the modes, there's plenty of videos on my channel about the modes, but there's also going to be an upcoming one that's a bit more concise and in a similar format to how these videos are. So that's the Dorian blues. And the Mixo-Dorian blues is, as you would imagine, mixes Mixolydian and Dorian and the blues scale. So we got root, second, flat third, major third, fourth, flat fifth, fifth, sixth, flat seventh, octave. I mean, you can see for the top line on the G string, it's literally a full chromatic line there. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So all those notes in a row are included in this scale, and the only notes we're really missing are the flat 9 or the minor second and the major 7. So it's just G sharp and F sharp missing. Otherwise it's just the chromatic scale. But there's so much fun you can have with it. If I move on to I know it was a pretty piss poor example, but it gives you the idea that basically you've got everything except F sharp and G sharp when you're in G. and it's just a sort of fusion of the three scales together. But I like I mean, I've mistakenly added in a couple of chromatic notes, but this is kind of the scale I use most commonly in like things like funk, where you need extra phrases, but you need to hint at dominant 7 chord specifically, because a dominant 7 chord, especially so if you're using a dominant 7 chord or dominant 7 chord, you got that major third and flat 7, and then you've got your blue note, you've got your major third for these phrases. So next we'll be back with the bebop scales. So the reason I'm showing the bebop scales is because they're essentially what I just did. They're a combination of an additional note to a previously existing scale. So as you can see here, we've got what would be, without this yellow note here, would be just the major scale. So yeah, that's why I included it. It's basically, it's mostly used in jazz, and it's considered, I don't know if it has its own chord form, but it does have its own modal structure. I believe there are 5 specific bebop scales that I know of. Just double check, yeah, including bebop dominant, bebop Dorian, and bebop Locrian, but we haven't really got the scope to go into that at the moment because I'm slowly running out of time. But it's just an example of, so you take the major scale, you say you're playing in major, it gives you a lovely kind of, gives you that minor 6th, which hints at a kind of sound of like, what is it, the 4th mode of melodic minor. But it just gives you a minor 6th in otherwise a major scale. So that's a nice example. And then to swiftly move on to bebop minor, it's the same note that is altered, but you're playing it over a minor scale. So we've got, sorry, not the same note. Sorry, I apologise, that was inaccurate information. But we're adding the major 6th to a natural minor scale. And as you can hear from that descending line, this isn't uncommonly used, so you got it. And you can consider them just as passing tones, but actually you can use them as kind of to add a flavour. So this adds a kind of Dorian sound because it's got that major 6th to the minor scale. So you can use it in a variety of ways, basically. So that's why I mentioned it. And it's just the chromatic pattern notes that are added that aren't designated as any of the kind of notes or sequence in regards melodic structure. So that hopefully wasn't too rambly for you and it kind of made sense. And this has basically been my little brief video about hybrid scales. And what we've got next on the agenda, we're looking at, this will be quite in depth, this next one, because we're looking at 7 scales and their uses and patterns and tonal structure, etc. So that'll be the new version of the video that's previously on my channel on the major modes, basically. So I will see you in episode 5 for the major modes.